years of this NDP Liberal government, Canadians are struggling to eat, heat and house themselves, but money from the carbon tax is lining the pockets of Liberal insiders. One government official said that it is sponsorship scandal level giveaway. It's clear that this Prime Minister isn't worth the cost when his billion-dollar green slush fund already has $40 million under investigation. One insider, Annette Verscheren, is a friend of the Prime Minister. It turns out she's also chair of the board. Can the Prime Minister stand up and tell us how much his friend received in contracts from his billion-dollar slush fund?
L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire.
Mr. Speaker, I find it interesting that the Conservative member began his question by talking about the affordability crisis here in Canada, but didn't end it that way. Allow me to address the fact that Canadians are struggling right now and that the supports that we have put in place are helping them to make ends meet, Mr. Speaker, whether it be the supports through our childcare program, whether it be supports to Canadians who are having a hard time paying for their rent or paying for their mortgage, Mr. Speaker. We have lifted over 2.3 million Canadians out of poverty since coming into government, Mr. Speaker. These programs work, and we will continue to make sure that Canadians benefit from them.
The honourable member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
It's astounding to hear that this member is saying that this program works. This program is under investigation. $40 million that's the subject of gross mismanagement and conflicts of interest in the Prime Minister's billion-dollar green slush fund. 8 years of this NDP Liberal government, they're picking Canadians' pockets with this carbon tax and putting it into Liberal insiders' pockets. This is a Prime Minister that clearly isn't worth the cost. His friend is chair of the board. She is receiving contracts. Can they tell us exactly how much of the money they've taken out of Canadians' pockets that he's put in the pocket of his friend?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I mentioned earlier, with respect to SDTC, the Minister of Innovation welcomes the decision of the Auditor General to conduct a full audit. The SDTC has agreed to provide all of the information and documents necessary to the committee, and I understand that the Minister of Innovation will be appearing before the committee next week in order to answer everyone's questions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Louis.
The honourable member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, after 8 years, the Prime Minister's new Liberal scandal has exploded. This one is the billion-dollar Green Fund slush fund, which is being investigated by the Auditor General. This has come from the Bloc-supported carbon tax. Daniel Leblanc from Radio-Canada stated that this is similar to the sponsorship scandal. Can the Prime Minister rise today and clearly say which Liberal friends have benefited from this bad generosity? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, what we expect of organisations is that they respect the strictest guidelines of governance. As I said earlier, the Minister for Innovation warmly welcomed the conclusions of the Auditor General of Canada to proceed with an audit, and the Minister himself will appear before the committee next week in order to respond to questions. Thank you very much. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, whistleblowers are very disappointed by how slow the government has been acting. In the same report, a high-ranking bureaucrat said this was negligence and laziness, purely and simply. That's what this bureaucrat has said about this Liberal government's management. After 8 years of this Liberal government, another proof that they are not worth the cost. Why did the Prime Minister drag his heels in this affair, which does look like the sponsorship scandal at the end of the day? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I can confirm today that the Department is working in close collaboration with the Office of the Auditor General on the question, and this since the very beginning of their work. As I said earlier on, the Minister for Innovation warmly welcomes the Auditor General's decision to move forward with an audit. Mr. Speaker, the Minister will appear before committee and Conservative questions and other parties' questions next week at committee.